today to our Thursday Thought. I'm Dave Smith, and with me today is Kirk Davis from our planning office. I'm calling from the Lexington home office of Family Financial Partners, and Kirk is in the Richmond office, right, Kirk?
That's right, the one and only. It's in about a 15 by 15 room here at my house. And thankfully, we built the home office back over the last summer, so it worked out well for us.
Well, good. Well, what's new with you since the last time we talked, Kirk?
Honestly, not a whole lot. I mean, just like everybody else, I'm stuck in the house right now, learning how to cook new recipes, which is always fun, but not so fun for my waistline with it.
I understand. I think we're all experiencing a little bit of bulge, and good Lord, I need my gyms to reopen soon. So today on our Thursday Thoughts, we're going to start off with just a quick little legal disclosure. Kirk nor I are attorneys or CPAs. If there's anything in this conversation that comes to you that sounds like the advice of an attorney or CPA, it is not. You do need to seek out one of those professionals for that type of advice. But on to our topic of today, which is, first of all, we're going to start with, for any of you that have seen our Family Financial Partners logo, the logo actually has 5 puzzle pieces. And we talk about financial planning with folks a lot of time as putting the puzzle pieces of your life together and in order and trying to figure out what picture they make. Well, the picture that you can see here is one of a tree with branches. And so the 5 puzzle pieces as they fit are, the first puzzle piece is the on your own puzzle piece. And for a lot of parents out there, you have kids or grandkids that are graduating in the next few days, albeit they're getting a diploma, but there's no walk across the stage and no bunches of people clapping. It's a whole different graduation year. I actually commented to someone the other day, I said, I don't even remember my graduation. And someone said, well, if you were graduating right now, you certainly will in 20 years. But yeah, it's an on your own time period is when kids are, finally leaving the home, maybe moving out of the dorm, and they're getting that first job and they need some help setting things up. And so that package exists for us to sit down with that child and to discuss with them what their options are as they pick their new employee benefits, as they try to figure out, whether they buy or lease a car, as they try to figure out what they're going to do with apartment living or roommates in a home, or just all of those types of things. We can be their resource for them, everything to even turn on the utilities. And a lot of parents like to, basically kind of just say, I'm going to delegate that to Dave, to you and your team, because I have to sit across from that child at Thanksgiving dinner. And the last thing I want to be doing at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner is sitting across the table going, I told you to do this, 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 and look what happened because you didn't. Believe it or not, you pay us a little money, we talk to the child for you and get them set up in the right place. And they actually take that advice totally different when it's coming from a professional that happens to not be their parent. So that's the on your own package. And if you have a child that is graduating or is just finally, they may graduate in December, and because of the world the last few years, they're finally starting to just now get their first job and move out on their own. If you do have one like that, then make sure they listen in next Thursday as we actually cover the on your own package. The next area is tying the knot. There's not a whole lot I'll say on that. That's a very easy stage of life. We have covered that in the past. So if you would like more information on that, feel free to visit our website at familyfinancialpartners.com and you can find more information on that. In addition, new arrival, that's an area we just covered last week, and that is out on our Facebook page at familyfinancialpartners.com. So go out to our Facebook page. You can actually see and view the Zoom podcast from that series. So if you are a parent with a child at home, a young child, maybe you're trying to think, what planning things do I need to do to raise this child, to provide for this child, and what are the steps I need to be thinking about at this stage of life for my family? That's a great video to take a look at. Of course, there's pre-retirement, which is today. We're going to hopefully ease some of your worries talking about pre-retirement. And then the last stage in that puzzle piece is the retirement piece of puzzle. And that's where if you're there, you're thinking about maybe a pension, when to claim Social Security, what to do with your 401k, maybe thinking about kind of Medicare or other health insurance options. Maybe you're starting to look at downsizing your home, maybe not in the dollar amount, but simply downsizing from, the McMansion, as people like to refer to it, to a one-story ranch with the master on the main floor, just so that you have something that, as you age in retirement, you don't have quite as many steps to worry about, literally. So those are the 5 puzzle pieces of our logo. Today, however, we are going to touch on the topic of pre-retirement. And when it comes to the topic of pre-retirement, there are several things that I thought I'd just point out to introduce the topic to you. The first thing is people always ask, they say, what is the age range for this? Well, believe it or not, it's 45 to 60 years of age. And you may say, well, Dave, I don't know if at 45 to 60 years of age, I'm really ready to think about pre-retirement because I've still got, kids at home and this and that. And I totally get that. I'm almost in that same stage. And, but just to kind of give you some ideas that life doesn't end at 45, nor does it end at 60, right? To kind of give you an idea, Henry Ford, you may not realize this, but Henry Ford was actually 45 when the first Model T actually came out. In addition, for those of you that are readers, if you've ever read the book, The Hunger Games, or movie watchers and watched the movie, The Hunger Games, the author Suzanne Collins was actually 46 when she wrote that first book in the series. And then we could go, if you're an art major, right? Leonardo da Vinci, right? He was 51 years of age when he painted the Mona Lisa. Now, for me, from my perspective, the Mona Lisa, I'm not really that attracted to her, I'll be honest. But apparently the entire world disagrees with me because that painting is worth a ton of money. And then, of course, well, he was not actually in our age group of 45 to 60. He was 61, but you may remember there was this gentleman named Colonel Harlan Sanders, who at age 61 started this company called KFC, right? So that was his first KFC franchise at the age of 61. So the thought is this is a stage of life where a lot of people are, depending on their profession and whatnot, they're either deciding, I don't like this and I know what I want to do though, or I've been doing something for maybe for even a couple decades, and I really do enjoy this and I want to hone my craft and stick with it. And voila, I have an incredible idea that can totally change my trajectory and do something that the world will remember me by. Not all of us are that lucky, right? But the thought is that there's a lot of good things going on at this stage of life, and people are tend to be very focused professionally. And because of that, what we find is that your income tends to be high in this pre-retirement age group, but your resources, believe it or not, seem to be limited. And you may say, well, why in the world? In fact, we have people come in all the time that are 50, 52, 58. They say, hey, I'm making good money. When I look at my W-2, I'm making really good money. But man, where does it all go? I don't feel like I have a lot at the end of the day. I'm not really sure what's happening. And I have an answer for you. It's children, okay? And so the thing is that what we find is that depending on, when you had your children, if you had children, when you had your children, the children are in school activities. They may have sports activities, travel teams. They may be in bands, and there's band instruments like my own. There may be, they may be, first car. You may be paying for their cell phones, their car insurance, part of their car payment, helping them along. It could be that, we have college visits to make, and we're starting to eliminate the number of colleges on our college list, and or we're starting to think about maybe the end of the summer, and we think we may move kids into a dorm, right? So there's a lot of expenses. Now, let's say you don't have kids. Well, you may actually find yourself somewhere in this age beginning to have to actually plan for your parents and take care of them if they have not financially, been able to kind of take care of themselves and do their own pre-retirement. Their retirement years may be in jeopardy, and you may have to either, pay a mortgage payment for them, or just give them some extra grocery money, or whatever you might be doing. But the idea is, in this generation, what we find a lot is for people with parents and with children, that's where the sandwich generation term comes in, because they're just getting pulled in a lot of directions. And that being pulled in a lot of directions, what that does is, and everybody knows, your time is limited, right? And why is your time limited? Why is it that when anyone asks you, how you been, the typical response that every single one of us gives is what? Busy, right? The reason is simply relationships, okay? Because at this point most likely you have your work relationships, you have, if you're at church or Rotarian or country club or the neighbors, right? Or the Boy Scout troop or the kids soccer team members, or, whatever may be, gardening club, art club, women's jog club, men's golf, anything and everything out there. There's a lot of relationships and really good opportunities that are pulling you in different directions, right? And you don't want to say no to anything, because there's always great opportunities of networking, and it's just a very positive thing. But because of that, you don't realize it until just the last couple of months happened, when you realize, wow, I was moving really, really, really fast. And no wonder my answer to everyone when they asked me how I was busy. So when that income is high, but there's a lot of requirements of things for you to do with that income, and your time is limited, it sometimes becomes very difficult to really focus in on what you want your future to look like. But the number one thing that we always say is, you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. No matter how busy you are, you have to make sure that you're developing a roadmap for your preferred future, and then working that plan. And one thing that I think that, a lot of people do is they have the best intentions of making decisions that are going to benefit them in the long term. And then all of a sudden, it's like the shiny object in the room. What? I just got totally distracted from what my goal had been. So when it comes to pre-retirement, this is a very critical stage of life. The good news is you got a lot of years most likely for it, but it's a very important time to make sure that you get those priorities in order, and that you develop a roadmap to work on that plan. So today what we're going to do is, Kirk's with us, and Kirk is going to help us talk about the steps that you can take if you find yourself in this age group, or in this life stage, if you will, to make sure that you're doing everything you can to get to the retirement stage, and not realize that you have to go greet people at Walmart or do something that you never thought you'd be doing down the road. Kirk?
Thank you, Dave. So just kind of diving right into some of the steps here. The first one that I think we need to all take a look at is how do we organize our financial life? Now, like you mentioned, up till this point, everybody has just been busy. Life's been chaotic, from all the time, from starting a family, raising that family, growing in our careers. There's a lot of things pulling us in a lot of different directions. And unfortunately, sometimes, the financial life gets pushed off to the side, and we don't give it the necessary priority one. And I understand that. So before we can really start the planning process, I believe it's important to know exactly where we are and know what resources we have. So I think back to the movie Apollo 13. So essentially what happened is they had some kind of problem with their ship that they needed to fix. So the first thing they did was take inventory of everything that they had, whether it be manuals, extra hoses, uniforms, whatever, anything that wasn't, essential to the ship. They gathered that and just laid it all out so that they could then say, how do we take the resources that we have here and use it to, accomplish our goal and fix the problem there. So over the past 20, 30 years or so, it's, likely that you've worked for several different employers. You probably have some old 401ks floating around somewhere. Maybe you started a Roth IRA or a brokerage account, and at some point you picked up some life insurance policies, maybe when you had your your children, because you wanted to make sure that they were protected. So let's start by gathering all that information, organizing it in a way that shows exactly where we're at from a net worth standpoint, income, and insurance point of view, and then we can actually use that to build our roadmap. Because it's really hard to plan a trip and make that roadmap if we don't know where we're starting from.
That's a really good point, Kirk, is that organization is so important. And in fact, what that made me think of is it made me think of our eMoney software that we have. eMoney is a company that Fidelity bought out many years ago, but we use it as a way to build our financial plans. But in addition, we use it as a way to aggregate clients' assets. So we can link in, as long as they're large banks, we can link in your bank, like a PNC or a Fifth Third. We can link in your 401k account. We can link in brokerage accounts. We can link in kids 529 education plans. We can link in your life insurance. We can link in your car, your home, any mortgages, student loans, credit card balances, car payments, you name it. And what I like about it is that it gives on a kind of week-to-week basis, whether you use it every day or every 6 months, it just gives you an executive overview of kind of where you sit and where you're at. And I think that is something that really helps people just from a wrapping the brains around all the different moving parts, so that when you're busy at your job, at your occupation, helping people throughout the day and getting things done, when you come home at night, you may log into the site and take a look and say, okay, where am I at today? And am I on track? And that it definitely gives you that feedback.
And on the same line with eMoney there, I often find that when I work with a family, there's one person in the family, whether it be the husband or the wife, that's essentially the nerd, and they like to be the one that digs into their finances, and oftentimes the other one more so likes to sit in the background and kind of have an idea what's going on, but not be fully involved in the process. eMoney is great for them because of course the nerd's gonna know where everything's at and how everything works. But if something were to happen to that person, eMoney really lays everything out in a very user-friendly way, so that whoever's the backup can seamlessly step in and pick up where it left off.
So once everything's organized, Kirk, what's the next step?
Yeah, so the next step, kind of going back to the roadmap thing, we've established where we're at. Now we need to establish where we're going, or the goals. So we're going to talk about goals in just about every stage of life here, because they're very important and keeping us heading in the right direction. So the main point with goals is we want to try to be as specific as possible with our goals. Now, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer to what your goals are, and different people are going to look at them from different perspectives. I'll have some clients that come in and say, Kirk, I want to retire at a specific age. Tell me, how do I maximize, my retirement at that age? Other people will come in and say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I want my budget to look like. This is what I want my lifestyle to look like. How long do I need to work, and what are the steps I need to take to actually get there? And they're okay with, maybe working a couple extra years to achieve that specific lifestyle. But either way, we just want to be as specific as we can with them. And they're going to be unique to you, but let's have that conversation of what they look like, and get those things on paper and establish a plan to get there.
Speaking of paper, Kirk, and this is just totally off the cuff, but something I just thought about, because I know that every single person that comes into you, they have exactly every one of their goals written down on paper, right?
I wish.
Okay, well, I got an idea for.
It would make the planning process a little bit easier. But.
It certainly would. If you just tell us exactly what you want, we'll work on that, right? So just the thought of something I do, because I'm moving in 5,000 different directions in a day, whether it's getting up in the morning, getting prepped to come in the office, getting the kids up, getting them to go to school, or just getting them to log in on a Zoom, activity or whatnot. But there'll always be types of things that I as I go through my day, I think I need to do this, I need to do that. And what I've started to do, and I started this probably a decade ago, and it's really served me well in this world of constant, kind of technology improvements and things like that. But I sometimes get lost on my phone. So I've actually gone back to the old school sticky notes. And believe it or not, when I have one of those ideas pop up and I'm in the kitchen, I'll just grab the sticky note out of the counter, grab my pen, and I'll just jot myself a little note. And then what I've found is that I'll actually put that sticky note it might be like retirement goals, or it might be just household to-dos, or it might be grocery list, whatever I'm thinking about. I'll actually stick it on the inside of my cabinet. And that way, it's not sitting out, I don't lose it, this and that. But every time I open that cabinet, whatever the main cabinet is I open, I'll see it sitting there. And what I've trained myself over the years to do is now anytime I have one of those thoughts, I'll just be like, okay, I'm going to add it to that. And then when I get to a point of, okay, I'm going to do household chores, here's what I got to fix or do or take care of, or which light bulbs need to be replaced, or reminder to do laundry for which child, or you name it. But I've also found for like some of my goals, whether it's, vacation planning, or whether it's savings related, or whether it's the next household expenditure, just keeping those in front of me on a silly piece of sticky paper, it makes all the difference. And wouldn't it be wonderful if people just did that even after this for a week or two, and whether they already worked with us or whether they are coming in brand new as the office opens back up to do some planning for the first time with us, they had every single one of their goals written down for you. Wouldn't that just make your job so much easier?
No, it really would, and I think it would make it easier for them too, because oftentimes I'll find that I ask a client, well, what are your goals, and I get some blank stares every once in a while because like I said, we think about them to an extent and have ideas pop in our heads, but sometimes they leave our heads there, and when asked about them, we're not too sure. So that would make my job easier, and I think it would make their life a little bit easier too.
Fair enough.
So going on from the goals, the next thing I want to look at is your budget. And the reason I want to look at that is there's a lot of things changing. And oftentimes this is when we see clients are in their peak earning years of their career. So in this stage, the kids are off the payroll, or they're probably getting close to that. So congratulations there. And now we're starting to see a little bit of extra wiggle room in that budget. And from what I've seen, as we have cash getting built up in the checking and savings account, if we don't have a plan for it and we're not intentional about how we're using it, we're going to spend it somewhere. I'm guilty of that. Dave, I'm sure you're guilty of that, and everybody is guilty to some degree. But this is the time that we really need to take a step back. Figure out, okay, we know where we're at, we know where we want to be. How do we need to use these dollars in the most efficient way possible to get us towards that goal?
Now, I'm just guessing this, but after doing this for 20 plus years, I'm pretty sure that every single person, when they walk into our office, they know exactly what Kirk Davis, financial planner, is going to tell them. You're going to tell them you need to save more and you need to spend less, right?
Well, sometimes we have to have that conversation, but not often. Usually what it comes to is, let's identify what's important in our lives, and let's make sure that our spending habits are reflecting that. Let's make sure that all of our dollars are going to the things that advance us towards our goals and bring us lasting joy in our lives, and reduce the dollars that are going essentially just slipping away for frivolous things that don't impact us in a positive way.
That's a really good point, Kirk. I think that's probably the misnomer that a lot of people have out there, is that that's all we say to people, right? In all seriousness. And the reality is there's a lot more of that. I always put it as, you're going to spend every single dollar that you earn one way or the other, right? It's just, the important part is for you to understand what it's going for, identify it, and make sure it's actually going where you actually want it to be going. And if there's a disconnect there, then that's where planning can really help you hone in and say, do I like going to Starbucks every day, Or do I like, going to the beach every 6 months? There's different options. Some people cannot do without their Starbucks and hate the beach. So be it. Other people are like, it's that easy, and believe it or not, sometimes it is that easy.
Yeah, there's not always a right or wrong answer that's blanket for everybody. So it comes down to what brings you joy and what's important to you. So after we've looked at the budget, the next thing I want to look at is to readdress the life insurance. Now, life insurance is something that we're going to have to address at basically every stage of our life. And the reason we do that is because life insurance is very specific to our needs at that time. So anytime that we see our needs change, we need to readdress the life insurance. So in this stage, the pre-retirement, the kids are now out of the house. You're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel with your job. The balance on the mortgage is starting to shrink, and various other things like that. So let's readdress those needs and see, do we need to increase our coverage? Do we need to possibly reduce it? Or do we need to change the type? Because up to this point, most of our clients just have term insurance. And while term insurance is great in the early stages when we're trying to get the most coverage for the least amount of premium, there is some drawbacks where the term eventually runs out, and we have to figure out how do we go from there, whether it's let's get another term policy, or let's get some kind of permanent insurance, or maybe it's converting some of that term insurance that we already have so that we ensure that we have enough insurance to cover all of our goals and leave that legacy that we've always wanted to leave, and possibly use it to cover some expenses within retirement as well.
It's the first thing I thought when you said, hey, we start everybody out with term, and then eventually we get to the point of, hey, you might need to own some permanent insurance, right? Based on your goals and things like that. It's amazing how many people, kind of kick back at that. They think, well, I have enough money. I don't need term insurance now because I have $1 million. But the funny part to me is, or interesting part, or funny, depending on how you look at it, is when you run those numbers on their planning sheet, it may be that depending on that person, it may take them $1.5 million or $2 million or $3 million. So if they have that first $1 million saved up, well, they are a millionaire. A millionaire is not the same as what it used to be, right? 50 years ago. A millionaire now is really kind of upper middle class America, at that stage of life. And so, if your plan does say that, hey, I need to have $2.5 million to make it, or $2 million to make it, then that's where that life insurance does still come into the picture, and you can't just get rid of it because you suddenly have $1 million. It still serves a purpose, making sure, again, even at that later stage of life, pre-retirement, that if that $1 million doesn't grow into $2 million, that other $1 million you have in life insurance is sure going to get you to that $2 million number if somehow something bad happened to you, and that way your significant others and children are taken care of. And do you find that people are receptive to that, or do you see that there's ever some pushback on that kind of conversation?
There's some pushback every once in a while, but I like to remind clients that what we do is financial planning, not necessarily building a financial plan. And they sound similar, but they're different. The planning implies that this is a living, breathing thing that's always going to be changing, depending on what's going on in the economy, what's going on in our lives. So we need to be able to adapt to that. Whereas a financial plan more so implies that this is a set thing. We never change the rules or change what we need. It's just a set it and forget it. And I think that the planning is ultimately going to get us to our goals a little bit more efficiently.
That's a really good point. So what's the last step here for folks in this pre-retirement life stage?
So the last step is let's look at your legal documents again. So again, Dave and I are not attorneys, so we can't really speak to a whole lot of detail here. But what I want to get across with this is things are changing in our life at this point, and our needs within our legal documents are changing as well. So for the most part, I see clients establish their legal documents when they have their first children. And at that point, they probably don't have a lot of assets built up. So the documents are more so structured around, well, who's going to be the guardian? How are my children going to be taken care of? Who's going to be the financial trustee? Those sorts of things. But as we talked about earlier, this stage is when the kids are grown and leaving the house, and those things that we initially set up don't necessarily apply anymore. It might have also been when we set these up, we looked at, well, where's the money going to go, and how's the money going to transfer to my children when they turn 18? And a lot of times parents will want to put some training wheels on the money, so that an 18-year-old kid doesn't get a $1 million plus benefit, and that they can go and squander. So they dole it out over a period of years as their children mature. Well, at this point, we kind of already have an idea of how mature those kids are, and maybe those training wheels aren't necessary anymore, and we want to change that. So now's a really good time to just readdress and make sure that what we want to happen in our lives and with our estate is actually going to happen.
That's a really good point. And as those documents are being drawn up and or changed, I think the number one reminder to folks that we see this all the time, believe it or not, is people get their legal documents from the attorney, and sometimes the attorney will just send them their legal documents in a box, because there's a whole pile of them with multiple copies, with tabs to sign here. And we've seen it before where people have brought in their legal documents and opened their box, and they're like so proud of this giant box they have, and they realize they never signed, they never actually executed their legal documents. So the one reminder I'd have for you, if you're out there and you say, well, I already have those legal documents, or I already did this step, guys, I don't need to do this. Just take a look and make sure they're signed, because that makes everyone's life a lot easier, especially if you just took all the time to go through those difficult conversations or different questions to yourself to figure out what you wanted to happen if you aren't around. Please make sure you sign the documents. So Kirk, to summarize the 5 steps.
Yeah. So step 1 is, let's just organize our financial lives and figure out where we're at right now on the roadmap. From there, let's establish those long-term goals, so the destination that we're trying to get to. And then we'll go and readdress the budget, as in theory we should have some extra room in it at this point, and make sure that those extra dollars are going to the things that we value and that get us closer to those goals. Then we'll look at the life insurance, make sure that the coverage amount that we do have is still adequate and the type that we have is still appropriate. And then we'll make sure that the legal documents are still in order for the various changes that have happened over the last 20 or 30 years, and make sure that what we want to happen is actually going to happen.
That's a really good set of steps, Kirk, and I hope that it has created, if you're listening, a little bit more kind of financial peace of mind on here are the things you can be doing. I know now, if you're in that pre-retirement stage, we know that your time is limited. We know that your income and your resources also are being pulled in all different directions. We just know that the number one thing in all of this is taking that first step, if you aren't working with us, to actually sit down, help us organize what you're doing. And like Kirk said, just figure out a few goals. At the same time, if you are a current client, and let's say the last few months, things have changed a little bit, and you say, well, the things I'm writing down on my sticky note, they're different. Life has changed. Give us a call. Let us know. Let us know how we can help. Let us know how we can rework plans or numbers or look at things in a different light for you. We're here for you. That's what we do. That's what we love to do all day, every day. And, if you have any questions or concerns or things you'd like to follow up on just from this presentation, feel free to email either myself or Kirk, or just give our team at the office a call at 859-219-1006. We appreciate you tuning in. This has been a Thursday Thought. I'm Dave Smith, Kirk Davis. Until next week.